Okay, my colleagues have talked about this, and the American people know this. They know what was carried out against President Trump and his administration, and in November, they voted to see an end to 2 tiers of justice, 2 tiers of treatment, 2 tiers of access, because they have absolutely had it with the lies, with the accusations, and with the attacks that have come against so many people who were just seeking to live their lives. And then all of a sudden found the FBI or another federal agency or the DOJ.
This may look like a heated exchange about personalities and politics, but it's actually a test of institutional credibility and constitutional restraint. What's really being tested here is whether the nation believes its justice system can still operate without favor, fear, or political retribution. This raises broader questions about equal application of the law, the limits of executive loyalty, and whether federal power is being shaped to calm public fear or weaponized to validate it. The stakes go far beyond this nomination. They go to the heart of whether Americans trust law enforcement to protect public safety without becoming an instrument of partisanship. In this video, we'll break down how this hearing exposes a deeper struggle over power, legitimacy, and the future direction of national justice policy.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Bondi, I know that you are pleased that we are moving to the end of round 1. And we appreciate your being here. And I appreciate that you told my California colleagues you were willing to work with them, even in light of the manner in which they have approached you. Now, one thing I think we need to have everybody understand that is watching this hearing today and everyone sitting in here, what we have witnessed over the last 4 years with a weaponized DOJ. My colleagues have talked about this, and the American people know this. They know what was carried out against President Trump and his administration, and in November, they voted to see an end to 2 tiers of justice, 2 tiers of treatment, 2 tiers of access, because they have absolutely had it with the lies, with the accusations, and with the attacks that have come against so many people who were just seeking to live their lives. And then all of a sudden found the FBI or another federal agency or the DOJ.
What just happened is a senator reframed the entire justice debate as a question of trust rather than policy. This matters because once the public loses confidence in neutral enforcement, every federal action becomes politically suspect, whether justified or not. If this narrative takes root without accountability and clarity, it leads to an even wider erosion of democratic faith, where law becomes negotiation rather than principle.
Knocking at their door. You know, Ms. Bondi, it would make you believe that my colleagues have learned nothing from the elections in November. They don't see this as a movie script that someone may have liked to write. What they see is this is real life. And they want a restoration to equal justice, equal access, equal treatment, abiding by the rule of law. Many of us have talked today about making America safe again. And in Tennessee, I hear a good bit about this. And as we've discussed your nomination, one of the things I've mentioned to people is your career as a prosecutor. And you have touched on that some today. And you are bringing that insight of being a prosecutor to bear. And I do appreciate that. Now, one thing that I think is noteworthy, and in preparation for the hearing, I looked some of these numbers up. During President Trump's first term, violent crime in this country actually fell. Yes. It fell by 17%. And in the first 2 years of the Biden administration, it soared by 43%. This is crime that is taking place in all of our communities. We've seen a rise, whether it's California or Tennessee, we have seen a rise. So I want you to talk to Tennesseans, to Californians, to all Americans about what you're going to do to get this crime rate down in this country?
Senator, thank you for that question. And despite the questions from Senator Schiff, I look forward to working with you and the state of California to do everything we can to fight violent crime in California. And you know as well as I, that crime is only going to go through the roof now after these forest fires. You're going to have looting. You're going to have price gouging. You're going to have so many things that I have dealt with in the state of Florida, and I am committed to working with California just as much as I am committed to working with you, Senator Kennedy, in the tragedy that just took place in Louisiana, given all the human beings that were murdered in your state. And we have the Super Bowl coming up in less than 3 weeks now, I believe, Senator. I've been a little busy. But we've got to ensure, if I'm confirmed, that everyone in this country is safe. And I will work with you. I will work with you, Senator. I will work with all of you in this country for everything that Senator Blackburn said. We have got to reduce violent crime, and we have got to restore integrity to our law enforcement.
What we see here is an attempt to rebuild support for federal law enforcement by promising strength and certainty. This matters because crime policy has become deeply symbolic. It represents order, competence, and moral authority. What this leads to is a defining test whether future justice leadership prioritizes measured constitutional enforcement or pursues aggressive force as reassurance politics.
Enforcement officers. Donald Trump, we keep saying he won this election by 77.3 million votes and 312 electoral votes. Look at the map of California, Senator Schiff. It's bright red, the popular vote, for a reason. People want law and order. They want to be safe so they can go to take their children to school, so they can go to church, Senator Hawley. People want safe streets. Of course we care about our economy and what's happening in this world, but if we're not safe, none of that works. We have got to come together. We have got to work together to make America safe again. And that, in turn, will make America great again. And I don't know where that phrase has become a bad word, because I think that's a great one, making America great again.
Let me move on with you to something else that's about law and order, and that is Section 1507. Because making certain that our justices are protected is important. And we also, with our judges, Section 1507 makes illegal any protest outside of a judge's residence if the intent is to influence the judge's decision-making. And we have heard about the protest outside of justices' homes where they were shouting loud and clear things like, and I'm quoting some of that, "If you take away our choices, we will riot," end quote. Another one, "No privacy for us, no peace for you," end quote. In other words, if the justices did not vote to uphold Roe and Casey, the protesters would continue to harass them. Despite this clear violation of the law, Merrick Garland did not bring a single charge, not one single charge, under Section 15.
Here, the conversation shifts from rhetoric to law. This matters because when statutes exist but are unevenly applied, the system signals that lawfulness depends on political convenience. What this leads to is a dangerous precedent, where legal protection becomes conditional rather than universal, undermining judicial independence and public expectation of fairness.
1507. Will you commit to faithfully enforcing Section 1507 as Attorney General?
I will faithfully enforce that law and all laws that I am asked to review. And Senator, I watched that on TV and it horrified me, the protesters outside their houses. You can't do that for a reason, because our justices have to remain safe and unbiased and protected from threats, as do we all. But they do enjoy a special protection. And yes, that should be enforced.
And thank you, Ms. Bondi. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This is a promise not just to enforce law, but to restore a perception of neutrality. It matters because the Attorney General's legitimacy doesn't come from power alone. It comes from restraint and consistency. If that promise holds, it leads to a recalibration of institutional trust. If it doesn't, it only deepens national division. This hearing wasn't simply about a nominee. It was a referendum on whether the justice system still belongs to the public or to political power. Accountability, integrity, and equal enforcement are not optional values. They are the foundation of democratic stability. If leaders fail to deliver fairness, people will stop believing the system deserves their respect. Institutions don't collapse overnight. They erode when trust disappears. The message here is clear. Restoring legitimacy is not about loyalty to one side, but loyalty to the Constitution. If America expects unity, it must deliver justice without preference. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA.